Hello, and thanks for tuning in for this episode of the AWS Edge Innovation Spotlight. In this series, we showcase groundbreaking innovation and real world success stories from our partners to demonstrate the power of AWS Edge services in accelerating your business. My name is István Polai, and I lead the AWS Edge Services partner business across Europe, Middle East, and Africa. Today, I'm delighted to be here in our London studio with Gareth Capon, CEO of Grabyo.
Hi, Span. Thanks for inviting me.
Thanks for being here with us. Why don't you start by saying a few words about Grabyo and yourself?
Sure. Grabyo is a cloud video technology platform, and we really think about having two sides to our business. We started off with a suite of on-demand services and tools that's building the ability to allow broadcasters, publishers, media companies, anyone really with live video content to be able to ingest that in the cloud and then create short-form highlights to be distributed across a whole range of social and digital platforms in real time. Subsequent to that, we built out a live production platform, which really is providing the capability for those same types of media companies and publishers, sports organizations, really anyone from a grassroots sports team right through to a global media company or a broadcaster to be able to produce live events in the cloud. And that's certainly been the big focus of the business over the last 12 to 24 months.
That's the core of it. What was the original driver of the innovation that led to the current shape of your services?
We started Grabyo just over a decade ago, and at that point, the real focus was looking at the changes in consumer behavior. This was really driven by the big change, or certainly the growing change at that time, with the shift from linear TV consumption to consumption on digital platforms. And that meant mobile, social, OTT, and a whole range of different streaming services for video.
Oh, that's very interesting. So can you expand on that behavioral change that drove innovation?
Absolutely. When we started, social video was a very new thing. You're just seeing the first implementation of video services on platforms like Facebook and Twitter, and then eventually Instagram and subsequently TikTok. But that was actually part of a wider shift of seeing that we'd moved from this world where most video services, both live and on demand, were delivered through broadcasters and a range of which were originally analog cable and satellite TV services, to a range of streaming services and mobile services. And that meant two things changed. First, the type of content that was getting consumed began to shift. There was a greater interest in highlights in short form, particularly content that was delivered in real time. But also from a live broadcasting and streaming perspective, it unleashes this incredible amount of capacity to deliver new types of services to consumers. So actually making the availability of live stream content much more accessible than ever before.
All right. So low cost and agility of the innovation, as you can imagine, are music to our AWS ears. So can you tell us a little bit about how you built this awesome service on AWS?
We've been building services on AWS since the inception of Grabyo over 10 years ago. And the philosophy is providing a platform that anyone from grassroots right through to global media companies can operate in the same environment, in this fully distributed platform services on AWS. We consume a whole range of AWS services to deliver that, whether that's Media Connect and Media Live to provide low latency, reliable streaming services, or building the backbone of our storage infrastructure on top of S3. And now, as we look forward, starting to integrate some of the AI and machine learning services to provide a whole range of assisted services for customers, and things like captions driven by AI or automated highlights for sports events, but really providing the technology to really accelerate the workflows for the individuals, for the teams that we work with. Our philosophy is definitely to combine the human editorial context with with AI from a technology perspective, but we all of that is built on this foundational infrastructure on AWS, which we deploy in all the regions around the world.
Excellent. And I want to get back to AI, but first I wanted to ask you about something else. At AWS, we love what we call our better together story, which is basically how we create 1 + 1 = 3 type of partnerships. And you mentioned how you are using some of our services, but I think it goes beyond that. So this is how we jointly create value for our customers. What do you think is making the difference in this partnership?
We see two sides to the relationship that we have with AWS and the elemental teams within that. One is the technology. As I mentioned already, it's incredibly important to us that we have this reliable technology infrastructure that we can deploy in regions around the world to be as close to our customers as possible, which not only provides comfort for them from a technology standpoint, but also benefits in terms of latency and reliability and resilience. So those things are really important. I think secondarily, the relationship we have with the AWS teams, and because we are building this very flexible, lightweight, cloud-native video platform, means that we can start to test and build in new AWS services very quickly. So particularly with regards to media and media and technology services, we try to be as as cutting edge as possible. And as things are developed or brought into the market from the AWS teams, we try to bring them in and test them, and ultimately put them in front of our customers as early as we can, which is really beneficial to us, but also strengthens our relationship with the AWS teams. And then finally, there is the go-to-market perspective, actually working with some of the AWS teams, marketing and account managers to bring some of these services to our customers. Obviously, the reach and the relationship of those AWS teams is far beyond the scale that we could have as a startup. And so that relationship is also incredibly important to us.
So I guess you can do clipping and short form videos in a number of different ways on AWS, but would you say that these are the factors that makes this a special success story with AWS and Grabyo?
As you say, there are many ways to create clips of video in video production, but what matters to our customers is three things: is speed, flexibility, and reliability. So when we think about, if you put a clip out on social media, what's the most important thing about that clip? One, it has to be there first. If you're going to generate that viral engagement, that distribution, you need to beat other publishers, but ultimately beat the pirates too. Yeah, someone may be sitting in a sports stadium trying to share that with their friends on TikTok or Instagram. So that's the first thing. The second thing is have a flexible service. You're not going to have hundreds of people sitting at these venues being able to create this content, and using a platform like Grabyo, you can do this from anywhere. And then thirdly, it needs to be reliable. If you're dealing with content from high profile sporting events, from from everything from major tennis tournaments through to the sort of biggest sporting events in the world, people expect it to work. And so having that relationship with AWS makes sure that we're confident we can deliver that, and it brings confidence to our customers as well.
Excellent. So we talked a little bit about AI, and this is a topic that comes up in every customer discussion we have these days. And I wanted to get your take on how you're using this technology to bring additional value or operational efficiencies to Grabyo. What can you share your thoughts on that?
Sure. There's a significant conversation around AI in our industry right now.
Right.
And if we look at both sides of our business, if I start with for the short form video side, there is definitely a lot more developments in AI with regards to event detection for things like sports and news, creating clips and highlights automatically, providing contextual understanding of what's happening in a video, even getting to the point of writing descriptions or meta tagging. All of those things are they're certainly not mature, but they're being embedded into our services already. They're being used by customers, and we see increasing amounts of growth in that area. And as the proliferation of live content continues to increase, the demand to automate these things actually grows as well. So those pieces are really important. When we go through to the live side of the business, actually creating new live broadcast or building actual services in cloud production, it's a lot less mature. There are some services coming through with things like captioning and maybe translations that people are looking at and using already. We certainly see a lot of demand for customers who want to provide accessibility services. So if you are providing a live broadcast, making sure that the captions are there, so people have access to those regardless of their individual circumstance. But I think as we look forward, there are some really interesting opportunities to expand the scope of what we're delivering from a live production standpoint using AI. Things that excite us at the moment are things like using AI for vertical video, particularly relevant on formats for like TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, for example. Thinking about the idea of maybe enhancing the quality of a video, maybe even identifying the best shots or the best angles, or providing a different content experience. All of those things can be assisted with AI, but from a live production standpoint, I'd say that's a lot more nascent than we're seeing on the short form side of the business.
Okay, great. So, look, I know that we jointly have a number of excellent use cases and happy customers. And if you could pick one, would you care to mention one that you're particularly proud of?
It, it's
It's
it's hard,
difficult.
it's hard to pick out a specific customer engagement that's been the most important. I mean, if I look back at the history of Grabyo, we did some work with the All England Club many years ago. That was one of the very first examples of people talking about social media from a customer. There's this very famous clip of David Beckham catching a ball in the Royal Box, which became this viral sensation on the internet, which was a really fun thing to do. I think as we look forward to where we are now, one of the most interesting things is that in the old world of sports, there used to be one sort of format, one broadcast that everyone got to see. Now, with this proliferation of altcasting, of streaming, of creators doing distribution, of vertical video on the social platforms, you're seeing all of these different formats that are sort of versioning what used to be a single production. That's a real area of growth for us, a real area of interest. We've got lots of major sports federations, leagues, and broadcasters interested in that space, because ultimately it comes down to what the consumer wants. We're telling stories to the consumers on the platforms where they want to spend their time in a really authentic way. So making sure that this isn't just a media production story that meets the needs of an audience on television, but is actually providing the content for a 15 or 16-year-old who may want to go on a TikTok and see that content in a completely different way.
Okay, that's interesting. And this is actually a good segue into the next area I wanted to cover, which is about the future, right? At the beginning, you said how there was a shift of consumer behavior that drove your initial service tech, if you like. What is it that you see currently? What is top of mind for customers right now that you think you're going to have to build for?
The three biggest things that we talk to customers around is speed, flexibility, and efficiency. And when we talk about efficiency, it's actually, in many cases, producing more with less. This shift to streaming is driving an enormous demand for both live and short form video content, but that isn't necessarily coming along with the parallel increase in budget. So there is this drive to deliver more content to more eyeballs in more formats on more platforms, but there isn't the economic investment to be able to do that in the traditional way. So we're providing a platform that removes the need for lots of legacy hardware or infrastructure, moves that into the cloud on AWS, provides a fully distributed environment so people can access those services from anywhere, but start to produce the high quality video experiences that customers want in the format they expect, but at a fraction of the cost of what was possible before. So that combination of a high quality experience for the customer, but ultimately at a cost and we deliver the product as a SaaS proposition, so you get flexibility in the way that you buy it. That's been really important. As we look forward, that's going to be really important to the customers we work with.
And what's the Grabyo answer to that? How are you gearing up towards this change?
We're lucky that we're a cloud native service already. Everything is built in a browser. It's already built in a as SaaS, that you can buy these services by the hour, so that flexibility component is there. We started to develop a whole range of API services on top of that. So actually opening out the platform to make it more interoperable and be able to work more closely with other service providers, which is certainly some of the feedback we've had, particularly from our enterprise customers, broadcasters and sports media businesses. And then of course we talked about AI, and we have to, we're really excited about some of the opportunities to bring these AI tools into our business, make them available for customers, but actually still give that level of human editorial control, which at the sort of professional end of the broadcast and video market is still incredibly important.
Excellent. So, for all this innovation that you have in your pipeline, is there something particular that you are looking forward to build with AWS?
We talked earlier about this demand from customers to have video on a whole range of different platforms, particularly mobile, smartphone, social platforms. And one of the things we're most excited about working with AWS at the moment is a new service that will address two of those challenges. One is around the ability to deliver vertical video live and in real time. So actually be able to create broadcasts of traditional media, that's sports, news, or a whole range of services, which be delivered live in vertical format, which for someone on a smartphone is really important. And then associated with that is actually bringing together, using the AI and the understanding of the video to start to identify key events, clips and highlights, which again could be automated and delivered to the customer. So this is really thinking about taking the video experience beyond the traditional TV or sort of horizontal 16:9 format, and thinking about customers on all those platforms. And we've working together with AWS, we believe we can bring a solution to market really quickly, but also give that control to the customers that they want as they think about delivering video experiences beyond the television.
Well, sounds really super exciting. And to our viewers, please watch this space for any update from Grabyo. Thank you, Garrett. That was very exciting.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's been great.
Unfortunately, this is a wrap for us. Please watch this space for updates on Grabyo's upcoming services and AWS's as well. This was today's episode of the AWS Edge Innovation Spotlight. If you're interested in similar success stories and innovation use cases, please look for our additional episodes and reach out so we can connect.